I was born in a small hot spring town in the countryside. My mother, the fourth generation owner of a long-established inn that has been in our family since my great-great-grandfather's time, has been working there since I was very young. My father, who married into the family, passed away in an accident when I was just 4. So for the past 20 years, my mother has been keeping the small inn running. As for me, being the only daughter of the inn, I was really fond of my life surrounded by my loving mother and the affectionate staff. Sometimes, I'd help clean the baths or play with the young guests, feeling like I was a part of the inn's working crew even as a child. So, I always thought I'd be the fifth generation owner, never doubting that it was the natural course of things. But mothers are amazing, aren't they? They're sensitive to their children's changing feelings, noticing even the things we try to hide. This became evident in the summer of my sophomore year of high school. My school was about a 15-minute train ride from our local hot spring town, in a fairly urban area, and many kids from the hot spring towns attended it too. As for future paps, about half would take over their family businesses, and the other half would go to college, vocational schools, or get regular jobs. Since I thought I was destined to take over the family business, I didn't focus on studying for entrance exams or pursuing higher education. However, one day, a friend invited me to an open house at a vocational school. I casually agreed to go, not realizing that it would change my life. It was a school where you could study all kinds of art, from watercolor and colored pencils to digital art. I've always liked drawing, so I found it really enjoyable. During the experience class, I loved drawing and learning about the life of a student there, listening to current students who seemed so passionate and fulfilled. By the end of the open house, I found myself deeply interested. Until then, I had never thought about changing my fate of inheriting the family inn, but now the idea of carving out my own future seemed thrilling. I started to harbor such dreams. But if I didn't take over the inn, my mother, who was in her 50s, would never get a break. I didn't want to burden her or make her sad. So, I kept my growing interest in a new path to myself.
How was the open house?
My mother asked with her usual smile when I got home and she had finished attending to the guests. It was just normal, I lied, trying to hide my interest. Then, I went to my room, pretending not to notice, and looked at the brochure I got that day. The dream of drawing what I love every day, getting better at art, and someday making it my job continued to grow in me. Even after a week, 2 weeks, the dream didn't fade. About a month later, at school, we were given career aspiration surveys to fill out. Even though I had supposedly decided to take over the family inn, I found myself unable to write it down, and the submission deadline was approaching the next day.
I heard from Mrs. Johnson that the career survey is due tomorrow.
My mother asked. Mrs. Johnson works part-time at our place and is also a classmate's mother. I forgot. I lied, not wanting her to find it strange that I hadn't written anything yet, although I hadn't actually forgotten. Then, in front of my mom, I wrote down family business. And then,
You can write down your honest feelings.
my mother said to me, "Huh?" I responded, surprised, and looked up at her. Then she came over, sat in front of me, and continued, looking straight into my eyes.
This is your life, Sarah. Don't worry about the inn, and try doing what your heart desires.
Despite not having said anything, my mother, with her understanding gaze and a warm smile, seemed to see right through me. Tears naturally began to flow from my eyes. Why? How did you know? I tried to ask, but the words wouldn't come out properly. Yet, it seemed like my mother understood that too.
I can tell what my daughter is thinking just by looking at her face,
As she said with a laugh. I knew my mother was a kind and warm person, so I anticipated that she would support me if I expressed my hopes. But still, there was no changing the fact that it would mean more hardship for her. That was the only thing troubling my heart. But, it will be tough on you, Mom. I can't just do what makes me happy, I said. To this, my mother replied with a bright smile.
Did you think I was having a hard time, Sarah?
Yes. I answered. Then my mother said,
You know, when I was about your age, I was also given the choice of my path. But I had nothing else I wanted to do. So, I willingly chose this job and I'm doing it because I want to. I've never thought of it as hard. As proof, look, I'm always smiling, right?
Indeed, my mother always seemed happy, her statement carrying incredible conviction due to her constant smile. This small inn continues to exist and thrive, largely because of my cheerful mother as its owner. I truly believe that. But aren't you just struggling and forcing a smile? With no days off, always wearing a tight suit, and not being able to go out freely, haven't you ever felt it stuff? I've been made so happy by your always smiling face, and now I want to help you. So maybe I should indeed take over the inn. It's true that I was interested in attending an art school, but the feeling of wanting to help my mother, which I've had since I was little, was also genuine. I wasn't sure which was the right choice for myself. When I shared these thoughts, my mother said,
Thank you. But you know, I am happy now. You were born, grew up healthily, and care about me like this. But the greatest happiness for me is to see you, Sarah, walking your own path, chosen by yourself.
Saying this, she gently held my hand. Her hand was so warm, as if telling me, it's okay. Encouraged by her words, I decided to pursue my studies at the art school. There, I could draw every day as I had imagined and learned a lot about art knowledge and techniques, improving incredibly by the time I graduated. However, only a few people could make a living solely from their art. Most ended up working in companies related to computer graphics. Some even found jobs in completely unrelated fields, but I managed to get a job offer from a graphic design company, a dream of mine. While working as an office employee, I started sharing my illustrations on social media, aiming to someday make a living from my own art. Such jobs were more prevalent in New York, so leaving my hometown, which was a few hours away by train, I started living alone. My mother supported this decision too.
I'm proud to see Sarah getting a job in New York and spreading her wings towards her dream. I'll also do my best, so I can stand tall when you come home,
she said with her usual smile. That truly made me happy. By my third year at the company, I was appointed to handle the company's employee trip. While discussing potential destinations with a team, my boss, Mr. Smith, mentioned,
Isn't your family home and in?
No. I was taken aback. I rarely talked about my family to others, but I might have mentioned it once during a casual gathering. Well, it's quite rural, and I'm not sure if it will excite everyone. I thought our inn was lovely, but it wasn't a famous tourist spot, so I wasn't confident about entertaining people from New York who had no connection to it. I wanted to decline, but
Why not? It would be nice to visit the countryside.
I'd love to go. Suddenly, everyone was excited about the idea, and it seemed like we were heading towards having our company trip at my family's inn. Well, I'll ask, I said, and that night, I called my mother. It would be a challenge to accommodate about 30 people and secretly hoped she would say it was too difficult, I thought. But she was thrilled.
Of course, it's okay. I'll work hard to entertain everyone from Sarah's company,
she said cheerfully. Though I was initially reluctant to bring my colleagues to my family home, accommodating 30 guests would surely benefit them, and my mother seemed so happy, so maybe it was a good decision after all. I started looking forward to it. My mother seemed really energized by the idea.
Does anyone dislike sashimi? I've arranged for a private booking. I bought new futons to ensure everyone from New York feels comfortable.
Calling frequently to ask, it is okay to keep things normal. Despite my telling her that,
I want the inn to be something you can be proud of,
she insisted. I worried she might be overextending herself, but her enthusiasm really touched me. Then came the day of the company trip. We rode on a chartered bus for over 3 hours, arriving at the familiar hot spring town of my hometown. It had been about half a year since I'd been back for New Year's, and even though it was only half a year, it felt incredibly nostalgic.
Look at all this nature.
A river,
So beautiful. I wonder if we can see fireflies?
People actually live way out here in the mountains?
Such comments, as expected, flew around as the bus neared my family's inn. That's when Mr. Smith pointed out a building, saying,
Wow, is that it?
it was actually the most prestigious hotel in the hot spring town. No, that's not it. My family's place is a small inn. I replied.
Are you sure it's okay? It seems a bit scary.
He jokingly said, what does he mean by scary? That's rude. I honestly find Mr. Smith a bit difficult to deal with. I thought to myself. Then, the bus arrived at the inn. As the employees started getting off the bus, Mr. Smith and I, as the representatives, went ahead into the inn. This was to greet the staff and receive the keys for a smooth check-in. However, what Mr. Smith said upon entering the inn was unbelievable.
Wow, this place looks poor. Kind of dirty too. I can't do this. You were really going to have the bosses stay in a place like this?
I couldn't believe my ears. He was the one who initially suggested it. Confused and taken aback by his words, I was speechless. Then he said,
Sorry, but we need to cancel. I saw a nice hotel back there. I'll try to arrange for us to stay there instead.
And with that, he left. I tried to convince Mr. Smith by explaining that, despite being old, Dane was well cleaned and prepared for today, but he wouldn't listen. The other employees, unaware of the situation, were being redirected by Mr. Smith, who seemed intent on canceling. I didn't know what to say to my mother and found myself unable to move. Given it was a cancellation on the day of check-in, the inn was entitled to a cancellation fee, but that wasn't the issue. How much my mother and the staff had looked forward to and prepared for the visit of my company's people. I knew it well. The sign right at the entrance, welcoming my company with "Welcome, XYZ Company," written on it, made it painfully clear how much they were anticipating our visit. Seeing those words, likely written by my mother, almost brought me to tears.
Sarah, you're already here?
That's when I heard her joyful voice. There she stood, wearing her favorite light orange suit.
Oh dear. I was planning to welcome everyone. Where are your colleagues? Are they outside? Her smile was even brighter than usual, full of anticipation. I couldn't tell her the truth. As I was about to speak, wow, what a lovely inn,
came a voice from behind. Surprised, I turned around to find the company president. President, I exclaimed, and so did my mother, equally surprised. Then,
thank you for coming so far. We're honored by your compliment.
She went up to him and said, in response to her,
not at all. I was really looking forward to this trip. Please take good care of us.
The president replied. Despite Mr. Smith having said he would cancel, why? I stood there, happy yet utterly confused about what was happening. While my mother went outside to greet the other employees, the president said,
I've already spoken to Johnson about his rude behavior. Sorry for the unpleasant experience he caused.
Even though it wasn't his fault, he apologized, bowing his head. No, please don't worry about it. I rarely had the opportunity to speak with the president in our small company, and I didn't think we had such a considerate relationship. As I wondered about his actions,
I could tell at first glance that your family's inn is a wonderful place.
He said, how so? I asked, not understanding.
Sure, the building might not be new, but it's very well maintained, and the flower beds out front are meticulously cared for. I've never seen such beautiful flowers even at the fanciest hotels in the city. Someone who cherishes this inn must be taking care of it. The sincere effort of everyone working here suits our hearts even before we enter.
Hearing his words, I was on the verge of tears. Then the employees started arriving.
I've never stayed in an inn like this before.
Everyone, except Mr. Smith, seemed to positively embrace the experience, and I couldn't hold back my tears any longer. Trying not to be noticed, I discreetly wiped my eyes with my sleeve and looked up to see my mother talking with the staff, her favorite smile on her face. I've always loved and admired how my mother interacts with guests since I was little. As everyone received their keys and went to their rooms, it was just my mother and me in the lobby.
Sarah, thank you. I'm so happy to see life and energy back in then after such a long time.
My mother said with a truly happy smile. No, I should be the one thanking you for maintaining such a wonderful inn that I'm proud to call my home. I said, an unusual thing for me, and my mother's eyes filled with tears. Then,
I'll always keep it here for you. You can always come back.
She smiled and said, the employee trip turned out to be a great success. With no other guests, we could relax, enjoy the hot springs privately, and everyone loved the natural surroundings and delicious food. Even Mr. Smith on the bus ride back said,
Wow, that was amazing.
Everyone collectively teased him, saying, you're the last one to say that. 5 years have passed, and visiting my family's inn for the company trip has become an annual tradition. As for me, one of my illustrations posted on social media became popular, and now I've become an independent freelance illustrator, fulfilling my dream. Living alone near my family's home, I occasionally help out at the inn, greeting my former colleagues with a strange sense of pride during their visits. Today, I'm living my dream of making a living through my art and helping my mother, all because she always wished for my happiness and kept our home safe. Truly, truly, thank you. I want to spend all the time I can with my mother, showing her how grateful I am.